The Universal Church, the Indian Church, and the Carmelites of Mary Immaculate rejoice greatly at this historic event of the canonization of Blessed Kyriakos Elias Chavara and Mother Euphrasia. They will be declared saints by His Holiness Pope Francis on the 23rd November 2014 at an august ceremony in the Vatican. The Church pronounces them saints and presents them as perfect models of Christian living. Their virtuous life is made a cause of celebration and at the same time a model for following. Little Kyriakos was born on 10th February 1805 at Kainakari in Kerala. His life, that spanned 65 years, was an abundant and amazingly eventful and meritorious one. He was born to devoted Christian parents in a traditional Catholic family and was brought up in religion, especially by his pious mother. Having completed the primary education, Kyriakos came in contact with Malpan Father Thomas Palakal, and at the age of 13 was admitted to the Pallipuram Seminary as a candidate for priesthood. While on priestly training, he was inspired to consecrate his life through the evangelical counsels of chastity, poverty, and obedience. Kyriakos was intelligent and excelled in studies and spiritual exercises. While in the seminary, he lost his parents and brother in an epidemic and was literally orphaned. He bore the pain of separation in a spirit of submission to God's will and rededicated himself as a servant of the Mother of God. His relatives had compelled him to return home to take up the responsibilities of his family as the sole inheritor. The crisis only helped young Kyriakos deepen his faith and nourish his devotions to the Blessed Sacrament and a filial love for the Blessed Virgin Mary. In Father Thomas Palakal, he found a perfect guru, a companion, and an ideal model. The young seminarian was greatly inspired by Father Palakal's rigorous practice of asceticism, discipline, hard work, love of knowledge, and pastoral commitments, and a deep prayer life. Chavara was ordained priest on 29th November 1829 at his home parish Chendangari, and he started off as a zealous priest. Soon he acquainted another young priest, Father Thomas Purukara, who was also a friend of Father Thomas Palakal. Father Thomas Palakal and Father Thomas Purukara were yearning to establish a religious life for priests to lead a life of contemplation and penance, as there was no such attempt done in the Malabar Church. Soon, Jacob Kaniyandara, a layperson also wanting to live a religious life, joined the two fathers. Having communicated the desire of their heart to the bishop, and after obtaining his permission to start a Basrauma, a prayer house on the hilltop, the three, after much travel and fundraising, resolved to establish the monastery on Mananam Hill. It eventually became the mother house of the Carmelites of Mary Immaculate, the first indigenous religious order for men in India. Soon after the ordination, Father Chavara joined Father Palakal at Pallipuram and continued his pastoral works. The wisdom and the zealousness of Father Palakal and Father Purukara influenced the young priest that they enkindled in him the desire for religious life. The work of the monastery at Mananam continued under the supervision of these three founding fathers, though was interrupted for various reasons. The agony of uncertainties and the ecstasy of hope continued, and the undying spirit of the pioneers persisted. Father Thomas Palakal died in 1841, leaving more responsibilities to young Father Chavara. Realizing the need for spiritual books, Father Chavara constructed the first printing press for the St. Thomas Christians, and the great mission of print media is continued even today. To promote education among the public, Father Chavara established a Sanskrit school, the first of its kind, attached to the monastery at Mananam. Father Purukara also died at the young age of 46, and Father Chavara, the youngest of the three, was at the helm of affairs. Though the strict contemplative life coupled with the pastoral commitments attracted others to join the group, they had to wait another 25 years for taking their religious vows and following the Carmelite spiritual traditions. And finally, in the year 1855, 11 priests made their first religious profession at Mananam on the feast of the Immaculate Conception. The community served the Malabar Church by preaching retreats and administering sacraments in the far-flung parishes of Kerala. When the Church of the St. Thomas Christians was at the verge of a vertical split caused by the unauthorized entry of Bishop Rocos, Father Chavara rose as a prudent and unrivaled leader and exposed Rocos as an intruder and ran from pillar to post to keep the churches united. Father Chavara was made the Vicar General of the St. Thomas Christians, and this move greatly pacified the people who were craving for a local bishop. In his official capacity, Father Chavara confronted the Rocosism and succeeded in sending Rocos back, and soon most of the churches that had been separated returned to the fold by the reconciliatory efforts of the prior, and complete unity was restored in the Malabar Church. Father Chavara was also instrumental in the reunion of the Jacobites, though the mission remained unfulfilled. As a royal servant of the Mother Church, he was altogether disinterested in any ecclesiastical position and loved the Church as his own mother and shared in her joys and sorrows equally. Through his sermons and circulars, he kept his church informed of the affairs and the developments of the universal church. He also expanded the religious congregation by founding more monasteries in other parts of Kerala. preaching ministry was an integral charism of the new congregation, as that was the only means of catechism and instruction. Fr Chavara himself was an eloquent preacher, and it is said his homilies were sweet, a ministry he passionately continued all his life. He was a much sought-after peacemaker, as parishioners often requested his intervention to settle the disputes, which he did with admirable impunity and skill. It was the commitment of the founding fathers to be involved in the formation of the religious and the parochial priests, as they were deeply aware of the vital role of holy and erudite priests to lead the church and the society. Regular retreats were preached for priests at the monastery at Mananam and later also at other monasteries. Evangelization of the Dalits was promoted by Blessed Chavara by establishing catechumenates attached to all the monasteries. The practice of pediary, setting aside a fistful of rice as a contribution to support the poor children to have a meal while attending school, was started by him and was later on adapted and taken up by the state governments. As the liturgy is the center of Christian living, along with the renewal of the clergy, reformation of the liturgy was integral to the growth of the church. He brought about orderliness and solemnity in public worship. He translated prayer books, composed prayers and hymns, adapted them to the context, and prescribed canonical prayers for the clergy of the church. He also filled in the gap by borrowing from the Latin liturgical traditions. He brought about uniformity in the order of the Holy Mass. He compiled the divine office of the church. The new press at Mananam helped in the printing of many spiritual books. Fr Chavara successfully effected a renewal in the Kerala church and a reformation in the society of the 19th century. Fr Chavara was a champion of education and insisted that people of all classes and castes must sit together side by side. This mission revolutionized the educational standards of Kerala and paved the way to the 100% literacy in the state in later years. He even decreed that a school called Pallikudam should be established attached to every parish and must admit children of all caste and creed. He even envisioned a central college for the church to impart higher education after the model of Western universities. He instructed the Kainagari parishioners to start an Upavishala, a house for the destitute, to care for the orphans, the old, and the dying. It was the first of its kind in Kerala then. He also introduced the custom of setting up a charity box to fund this program. Families were a great concern for Fr Chavara. His experience as a boy in his own family, the gift of his own God-fearing parents, and the Christian upbringing he was blessed with helped him idealize families after the Holy Family of Nazareth. His writings elaborately describe the role of parents, children, good traditions, and the need for Christian upbringing in the family. Father Kyriakos Elias Chavara was a prolific writer, a linguist, and a versatile poet. He was proficient in many Eastern and Western languages. The Chronicles, the Compunction of the Soul, the Martyrdom of Anastasia, the Dirge, the Meditations, the Colloquies, and many letters that he wrote are examples of his literary artistry and versatility. These works followed out of his heart's spiritual abundance. The 19th century St. Thomas Christians were deprived of a convent for religious women. Women empowerment was not a forefront thought. Blessed Chavara worked hard to realize this dream by founding a religious order for women together with Father Leopold Boccaro, an Italian missionary. They, besides striving for their own spiritual realization, should teach young girls and other women the art of Christian living. Thus, he founded a religious order for women in the Carmelite tradition, known as the CMC, now successfully carrying out the vision of their founder, Father Chavara, all over the world. Due to the amount of tireless wars and frequent travels and failing health, Father Chavara had the premonitions of his death, and he gracefully accepted it as God's will and was ever prepared himself to meet his Master and Lord. The end came on 3rd January 1871, and his blessed soul left this world to accept the heavenly reward. Father Matthew Capel, who preached the funeral homily, began by saying, "Today the flag of Malabar has fallen." This great soul of a great spiritual vision and mission continues to be the source of enlightenment and encouragement, and now being elevated to the rank of saints and presented to the whole world as a model for Christian living.